Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, my name is Vincent van Noord. I'm from EBTC. We are talking today about sports infrastructure sector in India, and specifically with regard to facility management and venue operations. There's a lot happening in the sector, and we've put together a cluster with partners who are part of the value chain. And today we have one of our esteemed partners with us, Mr. Aneesh Kadyan, who is the Senior Executive Director with CB Richard Ellis, the largest real estate or international property consultancy in the world. So thank you very much for joining, Aneesh. Maybe you can give us a little bit of an introduction.
Thank you, Vincent, and good to be on this call today. So just by way of introduction, I look after the property management operations for the India market. CBRE has been in India for more than 25 years. We're managing a large portfolio of commercial, retail, a lot of infrastructure that we manage in India. Based on our large experience, we're very keen to get into this opportunity of looking at facilities management for sports infrastructure. That's really catching up, like you mentioned. In India, there's so many tournaments and so many sports which are gaining limelight. So we are keen to see how we can support those infrastructure developments.
Great, and then thanks so much for being here today, Aneesh. Great to talk to you. As I mentioned earlier, I've been involved in the sector for over a decade now in India, and what you see typically is that there's quite a few stadiums in the country. They're generally utilized only when there is an activity, an event, or a match, or a league, or a competition happening, and then it will lie idle again for the next 7 months. Perhaps rightfully so, because if you have to maintain it in the lull period, it's also costly, right? And what traditionally happens is that 1 month before the event starts, they start brushing and hammering and putting everything together and setting up the venue operation. So consider all this. Can this be a round the year initiative where maybe you can create economies of scale or minimize the costs, or are there some benefits that you can see by doing this around the 365 days a year?
So I think you hit the nail on the head that the stadiums are there, but they're not utilized as much as they could be. It's a large infrastructure waiting to be utilized. And some of the stadiums are world class. You see the stadium in Ahmedabad, the Narendra Modi Stadium. It's huge. It's the largest cricket stadium. So what our personal experience has been in India, again, not from managing them, but from what we see, the stadiums are used for those large events. During the non-event days or the months, they have a few random events, like for example here in Delhi, you have the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium or the Talkatora Stadium. They use them for events like public events, maybe a food festival or some arts and crafts festival. They are being used, but also on a sporadic basis. What we feel is that there is an opportunity to develop the sports ecosystem, make these stadiums more accessible. I will give an example. There is a stadium in the city that I am in, which is Gurgaon. It's called the Tau Devilal Stadium. It's a multi-use stadium. There is an athletics track. There are some tennis courts. It's open to the public, and quite a lot of people go there on a regular basis. But there are no tournaments happening. So, for example, they have 2 good basketball courts. Once in 6 months, there may be a small basketball tournament, but it is not monetized. The owners of the stadium are not getting any revenues. From our experience, I think there is a lot of opportunity. And that's where we come in. I would say 2 areas that we can support. One is, of course, to maintain the stadium. This is what we do even in commercial buildings. Sometimes the building is not occupied because the tenants have moved out. So you have to have a plan to maintain a building in different occupancy levels. Similarly, this requirement is there for stadiums. You have to have a plan when there's an event happening, before the event, post-event. But during the lull period, that's actually the time when there's a lot of money which is spent, which can be effectively managed and bring the operating costs on an overall year-round basis lower. The second place where we come in is how we can use our network, our expertise in managing buildings, where we do a lot of events, we do a lot of monetization of the common areas of buildings to bring in revenue for landlords. So I think this is what we can also do for stadiums.
Okay, so you can be sort of proactive and look at other revenue streams to help maximize utilization and get some funding in to cover costs and ideally potentially make a profit ultimately.
Definitely, that's something that we do in commercial buildings, and look at ways to creatively engage the stadium with the community, and of course bring in revenue for the stakeholders.
And if you look at sustainability, is that also something that you can consider? Because that is also an area where you can, let's say, cut costs, right? If you look at alternative and innovative solutions.
I think sustainability is in the center of all the activities that most corporates are now engaging in, especially in the real estate side, where we really have a large impact on the environment. But for stadiums specifically, I think there is a lot that can be done in multiple folds. One, of course, is energy is a large component of running a stadium, both during the match days and non-event days. How can that energy be managed efficiently? We have the expertise, we have the technology tools to optimize energy. One important area I think is waste management. That's again part of sustainability. And I've been to many events, and that is one area where we can really look at bringing in best practices in terms of alternate materials to be used. How do we manage it? How do we reduce the waste landfill? All those activities can definitely be brought in on the sustainability front. I think basically to reduce the carbon footprint for every event.
Wonderful. So in India also you see, I think now more and more concerts, events, offices, pay and play, alternative solutions. And they're also different, right? Very different. If there's a concert, there's a lot of, crowd flow management and security that needs to be done, etc. So how would you, from a CBRE perspective, from an FM perspective, kind of planning, what kind of allocation of resources? I mean, how would you approach these types of activities?
Definitely, the kind of use case of a stadium can vary to many different kind of events. We basically have a basic process of management of stadiums. That's what we'll have to develop along with maybe people who are already in this field. Our expertise comes in as people who have the management experience to set in processes and then implement and run those processes. So if it is if it's suppose a concert, then right from the pre-concert events, the parking management, the crowd flow, the safety aspect. Safety, I think, is very critical. That's an area where we have a lot of focus in CBRE and expertise. So these are the things that will become a focus. If it's a small, say, a games, some event, then maybe the requirements will be different. The advantage we bring in is that we have a large supplier base. Depending on the nature of the event, we can ramp up and reduce staffing, which is there. We can get in suppliers quickly to address the requirements of that event. So the turnaround times we feel will be brought down if we were to look at property management or facility management of stadiums in a professional manner.